there's plenty of water pressure here.
Oh, good.
That works real well. Welcome to Home Time. We're just finishing up the master bathroom in our new addition. It features a lot of the new trends that remodelers are putting in bathrooms today.
In this videotape, we'll take you back to the beginning and show you how we put it all together. And we'll show you some different ideas on layout, design, and decoration as we work on some other bathrooms as well.
Home Time is made possible by Chevy Truck, who brings you Chevy full-size pickups. Today's big pickups for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Chevy S10 pickups, today's compact pickups that play as hard as they work. Chevy S10 Blazer, today's sport utility vehicle in 2- or 4-wheel drive. Chevy Astro, today's compact van with 2-wheel drive and new all-wheel drive models. Nobody's winning like the heartbeat of America. Today's truck is Chevrolet.
The National Home Time PBS series is brought to you weekly by Chevy Truck in conjunction with the Stanley Works. Thanks for buying this videotape.
We hope after watching it, you'll agree that it contains a lot of helpful information for whatever home improvement project you're planning.
We also hope you realize that neither the Home Time video library nor the PBS series would be possible without the continued generous support of Chevy Truck.
Without Chevy's underwriting, this tape might cost substantially more.
So thanks to you for watching, and thanks to Chevy Truck.
Before we start working on our first bathroom, let me set the stage a little bit. This is the master bedroom on the second floor of our addition, and connected to it is the master bath, which is right through here. We built our new master bathroom fairly large, and that's part of a trend toward bigger bathrooms in new construction. In fact, getting more space is one of the main reasons that people remodel their older bathrooms. You can't really tell anymore, but this part of the new master bathroom is all there was to the old bathroom. So we've more than doubled our space. In fact, let's flash back on this project and show you just how we got the bathroom to this point. It all started with a 2-story addition we built onto this 60-year-old home. We raised partition walls to separate the new master bath area from the master bedroom. Then after finishing the roof and the exterior, we were ready to blend the old upstairs bathroom into the new construction. First, the old fixtures had to go.
To dismantle a toilet like this, you remove the tank from the top of the stool it's bolted to underneath.
Now the stool itself is secured by nuts over bolts that come up through the flange below it. So then you just have to take the nuts off to get it out.
We turned the water off to this bathroom when we started framing, so there's no danger now of springing a leak. And we had removed a lot of the pipe. Now we take out the old door frame. And after draining the hot water heating system, we also removed the bathroom's radiator and capped the pipes.
Now before we go any further in the demolition, let's give you an idea of how we're going to remodel this bathroom. First, we'll extend the addition's master bath into the old bathroom and frame in a new back wall. Then we'll enlarge the tiny bedroom next to it and convert it to a new second bathroom.
The next thing we want to do is take down all the tile and plaster from the wall, ceilings, and floor. Once we clear out this entire area, it's going to be a lot easier to work in. But before we do that, we want to cover up anything that might get damaged, namely our tub here. We start on the back side of the bathroom wall, which we cleared during the addition framing. We pound the wood lath and plaster onto the bathroom floor with fist mauls. And this kicks up a lot of dust and flying debris, so we're using particle masks and protective eyewear. The metal lath and tiles are a little stronger, so we need a sledgehammer to get through that.
Next, we break up the plaster on the bathroom ceiling. Here's where you really want to be careful with debris falling down around you. We also rip the plaster off the walls, and we pound out the wall tile and the metal lath. Then we pry up the floor tile and the concrete bed it lies on. And that reveals the subfloor below it.
There it comes. Watch out for the nails.
We also clear the plaster off the wall between the bathtub and the bedroom next to it. That clears off the studs around the tub.
Then after cleaning out all the debris, we set up a temporary brace along the wall between the old bathroom and the addition. That's to support the ceiling joists and rafters during our next step, removing the old wall studs to clear the opening to the rest of the master bath.
Well, I'll go get that lumber, Dean.
Okay. To support this opening here, we'll be installing what we call a flush header. It's called a flush header because it's installed even with the bottom of the ceiling joist. This way it's not visible once we install the ceiling.
For the header, we'll use a pair of 2x10s. These will be supported by a narrow stud wall and 2x4 posts.
We support the header here with 2x4s set on a plate we'll need later for a short wall, and we build similar supports on the opposite side.
Now we can set the header in place.
To tie the rafters and joists into the header, we put double joist hangers under them and nail the hangers to the header. That's how the flush header supports the roof and ceiling here. With the header secured, we can remove our temporary bracing.
Our plan is to use this old cast iron tub in the second bathroom here. It's in pretty good shape, but in order to finish the framing, we need to move it out of the way. So, this wall has to go. We pull out all the studs over to the closet door. We remove the bottom plate, and we cut out the top plate. Then we tackle the cast iron tub. It's a nice gesture to preserve old fixtures like this, but it weighs a lot, so we're using a dolly.
Now we can raise the wall to close off this end of the master bath. We fill in the old door opening, and we frame in the short walls to separate the cubicles for the new toilet and shower. With the framing done, we're ready to start the plumbing for the master bath and the rest of our remodeled areas. Now this shows how we ran the vents and the drains for each fixture into the main soil stack. We worked with a licensed plumber to come up with a plan. He helped us get all the necessary permits, and we got our work inspected as required.
Remember, local codes govern all aspects of home remodeling, including the framing and the plumbing. In fact, some cities require that licensed plumbers handle certain jobs. So be sure to check with your building departments before starting your projects. The first step in laying out the DWB system is marking and cutting out the openings for the drains. And we'll start with the toilet.
To give the pipes a starting point, we first cut holes for the fixture drains. We center the toilet flange in the toilet cubicle, cut a wide opening for the guest bathtub drain, and position the shower drain in the middle of its area. Then we drilled holes to run vent pipes for each fixture up into the ceiling. We used ABS pipe for all of our plumbing here. It's a rigid plastic approved for plumbing. PVC is also accepted.
Then we moved downstairs to run the drain pipes under the floor and through the joists. That involved some cutting, which you do want to minimize. We merged all the pipes into the 3-inch toilet drain, which we ended near the area where the old soil stack used to be. Next, we rebuilt the stack up from the point where we cut the old one. And we hooked in the new toilet drain.
Then on the second floor, we continued the new stack up through the ceiling framing. We connected the venting we ran earlier and angled the soil stack up through the roof to vent it outside. We finished it on the roof with flashing.
Next, we cut holes in the framing for the whirlpool tub and the double vanity sink drains. We ran vent pipe down from the soil stack to the whirlpool. We glued the pipes needed to drain the 2 vanity sinks and ran vent pipe up to merge with the pipe going into the soil stack.
After that, we extended the vanity drain down through the first floor into the basement, and we ran the drain pipe down from the whirlpool opening through another first floor wall into the basement. Then we moved into the basement to run a 3-inch drain across the addition and through the old foundation into the main soil stack. We connected the vanity drain and the whirlpool drain to finish the drain and vent system for the master bath.
We started the water supply line system on the second floor, roughing in the hot and cold pipes for the guest bathtub, the master bath toilet, the shower, and the double vanity.
Under the floor, we ran the main lines and branches to supply those fixtures, and we stubbed out the whirlpool supplies. We ran the mains down through the first floor into the basement, and we continued the lines across the ceiling to where we hooked into the house system. That finished the plumbing rough-in.
Then after insulating the walls in the master bath, we hung the drywall and put on a coat of primer. And that's where we are right now. What we'll do next is prepare all the surfaces for the tiling and install the double vanity. And later, we'll lay the tile and we'll install all the fixtures. Now our first step is to prepare this whirlpool deck for tiling. Just the top though. We've already nailed birch plywood on the sides and we trimmed it to match the wainscoting in the bedroom. The material we're putting on top of it is called backer board and it's made especially for tile surfaces. It's basically a layer of concrete sandwiched between two sheets of mesh. It provides a hard, flat surface which is crucial for keeping the tile in place once it's been laid. The backer board comes in 3x5 sheets, and this one's already been cut to fit this part of the deck. Now, all we need to do is secure it. We're driving galvanized roofing nails down through the backer board and plywood and into the framing. Nails are better than screws here because the screw tops crumble the material, and it's harder to get them flush with the surface.
Now cutting backer board is much the same as drywall. All you need is a utility knife and some measurements.
Okay, let's see. 3.5 4.5. Then we transfer the measurements. Now we use a straight edge and a utility knife to score the backer board. And it's a good idea to shorten the blade up just slightly to not risk breaking it. We run the utility knife over it several times to get a good score. Next, crack the board along the cut, breaking the concrete. Then, cut through any mesh still hanging on at the break. So, when the cut's made, we can set it in place here. And it looks pretty good. Our backer board extends beyond the paneling by 3/4 of an inch to form this drip edge, which will help protect the paneling. It will later cover with tile like so. Now, moisture in a bathroom is a fact of life, and we do this type of thing to minimize its impact. Nail this thing down.
The backer board itself is more resistant to moisture than drywall or plywood, which is another reason for using it under tile.
We nail over all the horizontal surfaces, including this little framing edge here on the back of the tub.
We're also adding 3/4 inch blocking underneath our backer board overhang. This is to help support it, and it'll later be covered by the trim tiles.
We butted the pieces together as tight as we could, but to get a really good seal, we're mudding this fiberglass tape over all the seams.
We're securing it with a thin set adhesive, which we're also going to use later on to set the tiles.
Okay, you about done there?
Yeah.
All right. So, our surface is all ready now for ceramic tile, but that'll come later. What we want to do now is start installing the medicine cabinet and the vanity.
Ooh, and that last unit is outside. I'll go get it.
Okay, well, I'll clean this out and then start the medicine cabinet.
The master bathroom vanity is a combination of 2 cabinets and a set of drawers. And we want to get them in place before the tile floor goes in. And that way they can rest on the wood instead of the mud bed.
The medicine cabinets go in the sidewall framing here in the vanity area. And we install these now before we install the vanity. It's a little bit easier that way. And we remove the doors to make sure we don't damage those during installation.
Now the cabinets are made out of maple, and they've been painted with an almond-colored enamel. They're 14.5 inches wide, and they're 4 inches deep.
That's so it fits snugly between the 2x4s and a normal stud wall like this one. Notice that we've cleaned out the drywall between the studs at just the right height for the cabinet. So it's just a matter of picking up the cabinet, and you can see how nicely it slides in here. And the frame's been made larger, so it covers up all the cuts around the drywall.
And we just need to get the level on top of the frame and adjust it so it is level.
We're ready to secure the cabinets, but first we drill pilot holes to protect the wood. And we'll do that on all our cabinets. Then we anchor the frame with drywall screws driven into the studs.
The vanity installs in this order, a set of drawers in between the 2 cabinets. And you'll notice that they have a more traditional styling, kind of like the medicine cabinets. And that's to blend in with the millwork and the rest of the house. And there also aren't any tops on right now. We'll deal with those later.
I'm using this level to determine the high point of the floor, which then becomes the high point of the cabinets.
You want me to get the measurement for you?
Yeah, it's right over there in the corner.
All right. Now each of our cabinets is 34.5 inches high, and they're going to rest on 1-inch shims. So I'll measure up 35.5 inches, and we'll mark a level line all the way across the wall here. And that's going to serve as a guideline to keep the tops of our cabinets even.
It's level right there. Okay, so half of that would be marked 40 7/8.
There she goes.
All right. So we mark the center of our opening. Jojo will draw a plumb line from here, and we use that plumb line to line up the center of our first piece.
There, that looks pretty good.
Okay, I got the level for it.
The drawer unit goes in first, and we're going to draw a line down the middle of its back so we can position it in the exact center of our opening. This is also going to serve as a reference point for any holes that need to be drilled for the plumbing.
All right, now we want the cabinets to be flush up against the wall, so we'll have to cut holes in the cabinets for our water supply lines, our drain, and our cleanout plug, which just happened to fall behind the first cabinet. We also have to cut off the bottom of the toe kick to accommodate our warm air supply, so warm air can escape into the room. Okay, so we made the cut here in the toe kick for our warm air vent. Once all the cabinets are installed, we'll come back and put in a trim piece and a vent cover.
Now I'll just get the position of this cleanout plug so we can cut a hole in the back of the cabinet for this. Let's see, starting with the plumb line I've measured over, and go up to the level line. Now I'll just transfer these marks to the back of the cabinets, like so, and again I'm using the center line as my reference point. Now the place where these two lines intersect indicates the center where we'll drill. After drilling a pilot hole, we use a hole saw bit to cut the opening. We go from the inside to make a clean cut on the finish. Okay, Dean, I'm ready for you.
Okay, here we go. All right, so we've set the cabinet in position. When we place it on top of shims, it should reflect the height of the mortar bed that we'll be installing. And this hole here should line up with our cleanout plug, so I'll just raise up the cabinet to the height of the level line. Jojo can shim underneath there.
Yeah,
Got it there?
sure.
Okay, you want to come over here and get this? I'll hold that up.
And then we level the cabinet top. Okay, Jojo, bring it up just a little bit. A little bit more. Right there, that's perfect. Good.
To secure it, we screw through the cabinet frame into the stud using a couple of drywall screws.
That's good.
So with this cabinet in, we're ready to install our other two cabinets. But before we do that, we have to cut holes in the back of those cabinets for the water supply line and the drain. And we'll use the side of this cabinet as a reference point on where to locate these on the back of the cabinet. But one thing to consider, the frame sticks out further than the side of the cabinets. So you have to subtract the distance between the side of the frame and the side of the cabinet in determining these measurements. Okay, Jojo, the first one is 4 1/8 and 12 1/8. The right-hand side of the water pipes. Okay, come down 14 inches. 14 inches on both pipes.
After transferring the measurements to the second cabinet, we drill the hole for the drain with a hole saw. Then we use a stay bit for the smaller copper tubing. With the holes drilled, we can lift the cabinet in place and set it over our 1-inch blocks.
Then we want to line the cabinet up with the level line. Okay, that's it right there. Go ahead.
And secure the back.
Next, we want to tie the face frames together by lining our second cabinet up with the first. Now, the idea here is to get them as tight together as possible while still keeping the faces nice and flush. We'll start here at the top using a straight edge. Okay, let's see. That looks pretty good there. And then we'll want to take a wood clamp and clamp the two together. Let's see the line. All right, let's continue down, making sure we maintain our alignment. Then we secure the face frames with drywall screws, driving them through the sides of the frames.
We put the other cabinet in the same way, making sure that it's level and plumb, and that the face frame is flush with its neighbor. The dimensions of your cabinets may not always fit into your opening just perfectly. In fact, that's pretty common. Now we've got a gap that's left over here, and our cabinet maker has supplied us with a filler strip to cover that gap. We've cut it down to size and attached this decorative front. Now we can just put it in. To get a good snug fit, we cut it a hair wider than the actual gap. The wall gives way to accommodate it, making a tight seam with the wood. Then we just secure it to the face frame with screws. The filler strips balance the look of the vanity, and that finishes this part of the cabinet installation.
So with our vanity all level, plumb, and secure, we're ready to move on to the next step, and that's putting on our countertop and cutting the holes for the two sinks.
We're going to cover our vanity using this 3/4 inch plywood. Now later it'll be finished off with ceramic tile. But first we got to cut it down to size.
After measuring out the dimensions, we use a circular saw to cut it. We're leaving the front edge long by an inch for a drip edge like the one on the Whirlpool deck.
We're also building up the edges of our countertop. That's to make a more attractive edge, but to also keep the doors and drawers from interfering with our trim pieces. And we're using strips of our same 3/4 inch plywood here, and basically they're just cut to fit along the sides. The strips go on the bottom over a bead of carpenter's glue, and we drive in screws to fasten them tightly.
Well, we're all set to install our countertop, but before we do that, we want to find the center of our two outside cabinets. Now these are 30 inches wide, so by positioning the tape on the outside here, we measure over 15 inches, and we make a light mark on the front of the frame right there.
All right, now we can just lift the counter into place and make sure that the buildup falls right over the edges. Ready? Yeah. Once it's in place, we secure the top using drywall screws. We drive down through the top into the cabinet corner braces. The screw heads will later be covered by tiles. Now for the sink openings, we're going to transfer the center mark that we made on the cabinets up to the countertop, like so. Then using a framing square, we'll line it up, and we'll draw a center line that's perpendicular to the front edge.
Sinks usually come with templates like these to help you make the correct opening. You just lay it on the countertop over the center line like so. Now we could center this over our countertop, but to make certain that we have plenty of room for our edge tile here and for the front of our sink here, we'll position it about like this. That'll give us 1 3/4 inches. Bring our saw around, and we have plenty of room up front. With the template taped down, we draw our outline. We drill a pilot hole and use a jigsaw to cut the curving edges of the opening.
We used the same steps to cut out the opening for the second sink, so now both openings are ready. But the sinks go on top of our finished tile, so we'll install them later. And I'd say that wraps it up for you and me today.
Yeah, that's true. We'll start up again tomorrow, this time with a shower pan.
We're going to clean up our act by giving our new Chevy S10 pickup a wash it's really earned.
This is an S10 Maxi Cab with 4-wheel drive. It's a new truck, but it's going to get dirty when you use one as much as we do. And here we go. This truck's been everywhere today. It really needs this wash.
A Chevy S10 is one of the hardest working compact pickups you can buy. An all-round helper for any major do-it-yourself job. We use ours for everything from running simple errands to hauling big loads like this fill dirt for landscaping.
It's easy to see that an S10 pickup is built for a long life. The cargo box is smooth inside because it's all welded. You won't find any exposed mounting bolts here to trap water and cause rust.
This Chevy is fun to drive, too, especially in four-wheel drive with the standard InstaTrack system. InstaTrack lets you shift on the fly from two-wheel drive into four-wheel drive high and back again at any speed. You don't have to stop or even slow down.
Soap and water, that's all our good-looking S10 needed to shine again. And underneath those aerodynamic lines is a 4.3-liter Vortec V6 that's standard on four-wheel drive S10 pickups like this one.
The popular Vortec V6 has 160 horsepower for some real towing muscle. Properly equipped with the Vortec V6 and other required equipment, a four-wheel drive S10 pickup can tow up to 5,500 pounds. That includes trailer, cargo, and passengers. A two-wheel drive model can tow up to 6,000 pounds, 3 tons.
To help you make stable, smooth stops, there's a standard rear-wheel anti-lock brake system. On four-wheel drive models, the anti-lock feature operates only in two-wheel drive.
An S10 Maxi Cab has the added room of a stretched cab. With optional rear jump seats and required front buckets, it can carry 4 adults. Or you can fold up the rear seats for extra cargo space.
Well, it's all clean now. Ready to go back to work and get dirty again.
That's the way it goes with a truck that does so much.
Chevy S10 pickup is another reason today's truck is Chevrolet.
And why nobody's winning like the heartbeat of America.
You all set?
All set.
Okay, good.
We had a subcontractor install a mortar bed here in the shower. It provides a good barrier for moisture, and it's a nice solid surface to lay our tile. Now, this isn't necessarily a job for a do-it-yourselfer. That's why we had a subcontractor do it. And this is just the first layer. We'll be installing a second layer that will slope up toward the walls. But first, we have to install our shower pan.
The shower pan is a waterproof fabric that's required as a moisture barrier between 2 layers of mortar. And it's made out of a plastic called CPE. And I've already marked the dimensions of our shower bed, and I've creased it along the edges. Now the trick is to fold it so we've got one corner with which we can begin our installation, which would be right here.
All right, to get started, we spread a ready-mix organic mastic over the mortar to secure the fabric. Then we lay the material down, starting in the corner, and we position the creases at the walls. And we press down to seal the pan to the adhesive. And we cut enough material to continue up the studs, and we secure it to the framing.
We do have to cut the fabric right here in the middle, first for the drain and then for the flange bolts. We'll start with the drain. You want to feel where it is, and then using the utility knife, we make our cut, following the edge all the way around. That opens a hole for the drain. Then we feel under the fabric for the flange bolt holes and cut slots for the bolts. We squeeze caulk under the pan to seal it to the flange and set the bolts in place. Now we slide the upper part of the flange down over the bolts and tighten them securely. And we finish by screwing down the strainer.
We want to cover up the shower walls with backer board to give us a good surface to tile on. But first we want to staple up these strips of builder's felt to fur out the front of the studs. The felt is the same thickness as the shower pan membrane, so it builds up the studs to match the overlapping pan edges on the corner. And the backer board is also a hair thinner than drywall, so the felt strips will make the backer board surface come out flush with the drywall here at the edge of the shower.
Now we're ready to secure the backer board to the shower framing, and we laid this blanket down to protect the shower pan and the drain. We're starting at the bottom of the back wall and working up. The first sheet goes right over the lip of the fabric pan, but we're using 1/2-inch spacers to keep the bottom above the material. As before, we're using roofing nails to secure the backer board, and we only nail at or above the top of the shower pan to keep from puncturing the fabric.
We've cut the 3x5 sheets 40 inches wide to match the width of the wall. That means fewer vertical seams. We finished the wall with a piece cut to fit flush between the previous sheet and the drywall on the ceiling. It's pretty much the same for the next wall, so we can skip ahead a little bit. Well, Well, the second wall went in pretty much the same as the first, although we did have to make some pretty exact cuts to get a nice tight fit here next to the drywall. And we have the first sheet done here on the third wall, but this next sheet, that's going to be a different story. We have to cut out holes for the valve stems of the shower control. So we'll measure over from the side sheet like so to the middle of the stem, okay, and then we'll measure down from the top of the last sheet. Now we want to transfer our measurements to a piece of backer board we've cut to size. And we drive a nail through to mark the back side. We draw the openings we need with a compass, like so, and then score the mesh with a carbide tip knife. There, that ought to do it. I repeated the process on the other side of the board. It's just a matter of flipping it over once again to the front side and hammering out our openings. Now this isn't a real exact clean opening, but again remember this will be covered by tile and a handle flange. For now, we just slide the piece over the stems, making sure the rest of the sheet fits. And we nail it in.
We made a similar hole in the next piece to accommodate the shower head arm, and we secured that sheet in place. Okay, we've got our backer board on all the shower walls, so we're ready for our next step, and that's mudding and taping the backer board seams. On the walls, it works best to spread a layer of thin set mud first, starting on the horizontal seams.
Then we lay the mesh tape over it, about like that, and use a tape knife to embed it in the mud.
On the corners, we lay the mud in the seam.
And using my fingers, I wedge the tape into the joint, and then make a couple passes with a knife.
That's our final step on the shower wall preps, so we're ready to start the tiling.
We're installing 3x3 tiles here on the countertop, also on the deck for the whirlpool and the shower. And they come in these pre-spaced sheets, so it makes installation go a lot faster. It's a porcelain tile with a glazed surface. It's durable and being scratch resistant and stain proof. It's also rated impervious to moisture according to national standards.
Here's some of the others that we're going to be using. You know, tiles come in just about every color imaginable and in just about every geometric shape, so it's easy to make your bathroom unique. You can use different colors and shapes to create your own pattern, or there are these pre-spaced tile sheets that are available with the patterns already laid into them. And these are great for big jobs such as floors. In fact, we'll be using this on our master bathroom floor.
Before setting any tile, we want to spend some time planning our layout. There's nothing that looks worse than tiles whose edges aren't straight and square. So the first thing we want to do here is find the midpoint of the front of the countertop. And we'll mark that right here. Then we want to try laying out some of our front edge pieces, like so. Now dry fitting tiles like this is a good way of anticipating any problems. We want to center our grout line on our mark, like that. Now a good rule of thumb is to use the pre-spaced pieces in helping us set out the spacing for our first trim pieces here. When tiling, use as many full tiles as possible to avoid making too many cuts, but obviously you'll have to make a few cuts every now and again. Well, for instance, on our last piece here, we'll be making one. Looks like we'll be taking off about 3/8 of an inch, which is fine, just as long as we're not taking off more than half the tile. And it's also balanced by the fact we'll be making the same size cut on the other end of the countertop. Now, all of our other tiles will be running off our trim pieces, full tiles in the center and our cut tiles up here. For the time being, I want to make a reference mark here, and then draw a perpendicular line from that reference mark, and it's from this line that we'll be able to start laying our tiles. This line here represents the last row of full tiles before we get into the cut tiles here around the sink. Now, reference lines like this just make it a lot easier for us to lay the tiles straight and square. So I'll just keep on laying out some more tiles here so we can generate a few more reference lines.
Here Here on the whirlpool deck, I've already dry fit some tiles and laid out some reference lines. And it's not that much different than the countertop, except where these angled sides meet. Now here, at the corner, we're going to have to miter cut 2 small trim tiles to cover it up. And the first row of tiles behind them are going to have to be angle cut to blend in with the field tiles.
All right, we're ready to start setting the tile now. And we'll begin with our counter trim up here in front since all the other tile lines up behind it. And I'm starting with a strip of adhesive here on the front edge. It's the same adhesive we used earlier on the shower pan. It works real well for setting tile on top of plywood.
We're also back buttering the trim tiles, but just between the ribs on the horizontal side, and that's to make sure that they stick to the edge. We start at the reference line with the first tile and work our way down. We give each tile a little twist to make sure all the mastic catches. We also want to make sure we've left the proper spacing for the grout, so we check the gaps as we go along. We're going 3/16 of an inch, which is the gap on our pre-spaced sheets. You do want to work quickly once you've laid out that adhesive. At the end, we leave the last tile on each side to be cut later on.
This line here represents our last row of full tiles coming across the back. Next thing we want to do is fill in this area with tile. First we have to get some mastic down. First we spread it across the area using the flat side of the trowel, making good contact with the plywood. Then we cross it a second time with the notched end of the trowel. The 1/4-inch notches leave ridges that help adhere the tile better. Okay, Jojo, it's all yours.
Okay, well now here's where we can save some time. The tiles come pre-spaced on mesh backing, 16 of them to a sheet, so they can go in pretty quickly. We lay them down in place behind the edge tiles. The straight edge of a trowel helps line them up, and pounding down with a rubber grout float presses the tiles down evenly into the mastic. That gives you the basic idea of how you lay down the full tiles. You can also cut the mesh and use partial sheets for smaller sections. Goes right here.
And this one fits right in there. Well, we've been using these tile nippers to shape our tile around the outside rim of the sink. Now the sink will actually cover our cut edges, so the appearance of the cuts isn't that critical. So the way we do this is to set the tile in place, take a felt tip marker, mark the edge, like so, then nip away the excess, taking fairly small bites. It produces flying chips. So be sure to wear protective eyewear. And the rough edge can scratch you, so smooth it off with a rubbing stone. Now it's a good idea to dry fit the entire rim with your cut pieces before securing them. There we go.
There, well that ought to work. Well now that we're done cutting and dry fitting the tiles, we can take them off the plywood so we can secure them and finish off these sink openings. We apply the mastic adhesive inside of our reference lines. First a smooth coat, and then we comb it out with the notched side of the trowel. Then we lay the pieces in their proper spots, lining each one up with its neighbors. We continue to leave the same space between the tiles for the grout.
And the sink openings don't leave much space on the countertop's front and back edges, so we're forced to put in some tiles that are less than half the full size. In fact, some are just slivers. That's all right, since they'll be covered by the lip of the sink.
Now that all the tiles are in around the sink, we can go ahead and put in our last row of full tiles here. And then we'll move on to the cut tiles on the sides and in the back. We're back buttering these pieces. Don't be afraid to be liberal with the mastic. And then using a corner of the margin trowel, make grooves. With those in, we can go ahead and measure for the pieces we have to cut to fit against the walls. It's a good idea to check in a couple of spots since the walls might not be square.
There are a couple of ways of cutting ceramic tile. And let's show you those before we go any further. This is a tile cutter, which you can rent or buy.
scores the tile along the cutting line and then uses pressure on the line to break it. For larger tile jobs, or if you're working with tile that's a little bit more difficult to cut like our trim tile, you might want to rent a tub saw. It has a diamond cutting blade. It cuts through the tile, spray of water, blade cool. If you use one of these, read the directions, wear safety glasses, be careful.
Now we can lay in our cut tiles, and it's pretty tough to get a trowel in these tight quarters, so we're back buttering each piece individually. And when you put these in, you want to make sure that the cut side goes up against the wall.
There you go.
That way it'll be less obvious. You want to leave a little gap against the wall too for the grout.
Well, that wraps up the countertop.
Yeah, it sure does.
I tell you what, I'll start on the deck. You want to do the backsplash?
Sure.
All right.
Got a deal. A backsplash is a common way to finish the wall around a counter or a deck. And we're going to be using a single row of bullnose tiles. These are similar to the tiles we've been working with, except they have a rounded edge to finish flush with the wall. This first piece has been cut and shaped to fit over the end trim. It's a special tile with two rounded edges used for finishing rows of bullnose. The regular bullnose tile go in next, right over the tile below it, with the grout spaces all lined up. With the electrical box here, we did have to cut each bullnose to keep the tile low enough. After several are in place, we use a level to make sure all the tiles are even, and adjust if we have to. Then it's more of the same type of tiling along the back wall and the other side wall. Once all the other tiles are in, we cut pieces to fit the remaining spaces in the corner. We leave a gap for grout where the two corner pieces meet. All right, well, the tile on the countertop is all set. Now we still need to grout, of course, but we need to let the adhesive dry overnight. So, Dean, I'll just finish cleaning up here and then I can help you in the whirlpool tub.
Sounds good. All right, well, we're halfway done with the whirlpool area here. It went pretty much the same way as the countertop. We started with our edge tile, and then we filled in with the tile behind it. Now remember, this is the area where we had to accommodate our angled front edge. You can see how we had to miter cut these pieces to turn the corner. We did switch to thin set mortar, which is a correct adhesive to use on top of backer board. Right now I'm putting in the angled tiles that we cut to smooth our transition between the edge tile and our field tile.
The trim pieces go right on top of the blocking that we nailed underneath the drip edge. A thin set mortar goes on top on the backer board, and a mastic goes on the side where the wood is.
For a long-lasting surface, be sure to get the proper adhesive for the surface you're tiling.
And take the time to clean off any adhesive that sticks to the tile surface. Wet sponge usually does the trick. Once all the surface pieces are laid in, you can finish it off with a backsplash. This one also rises up one course of bullnose tile to match the countertop.
Well, we made pretty good progress in the shower stall here so far. We're using the same 3x3 tiles that we used on the countertop and on the whirlpool deck. And we started tiling on the back wall, tiling out from the center here so we end up with the same size tiles on either side. It gives us a nice balanced look. We also left out a few tiles here for a shelf. We started with full tiles at the top and cut tiles on the bottom. This is where our second layer of mortar comes in.
Here on the second wall, we kept the horizontal gaps for grout in line with the back wall. And this gives us a sense of symmetry and continuity. And we finished the edge with a row of bullnose tiles, and they cover up the joint where the backer board and the drywall meet. Now, starting on this side does mean that we had to have a small cut piece on the opposite side, but it's really less noticeable there.
Well, we're done with the bottom third of the wall. Notice how we handle this angled edge with a piece of cut tile and bullnose. And we left the bottom part open on both sides with a shower curb that we'll install later. With that, we're all up to date on our work and we can get going again. So the next thing we want to do is get the mastic up here in this area for our next batch of tile.
Here's where these pre-spaced sheets can really save us some time. With 16 tiles on a sheet, we've been clipping along pretty well on this wall.
The first tiles were lined up according to reference lines that we laid earlier. But once you're in the field, you can use the other tiles to keep the tiles straight and the grout lines square. And then be sure to twist the tiles a little bit and use a grout float to make sure they're secured firmly to the wall. Now it's just a matter of moving across the wall and up to the top.
Okay, well we've tiled up to the stems for the shower valve controls. And now we need to make a couple of cuts in the tiles to accommodate them. So I set the tile in place and make one mark, put it next to the neighboring tile, make another mark, draw a line connecting the 2 points, and that's where we'll make our cut.
For cutting a tile in the corner like this, a nippers will work fine.
With the pieces cut and back buttered with adhesive, we set them in position. These cuts don't have to be absolutely perfect. They're going to be covered by a flange later on. Well, that does it for the tile setting inside the shower. Now our next step will be to fill in all the gaps with grout. But we really need to let these dry overnight. So instead we're going to pour our shower curb once we get a mold built for it.
Now we have some forms put together here for our shower curb using pieces of backer board. And boxes of tile like this are holding everything together for us. Now we're all set for our mortar.
There you go.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate it. The mortar goes between the boards, which have been cut to the proper height for the curb. And we cover the wire mesh, which is sandwiched around the edge of a fabric shower pan. We mix the mortar for this fairly thin. It's a combination of Portland cement, sand, and water. And we chop it or slice it with a trowel to eliminate air pockets. We'll let it stand overnight before removing the forms.
Choosing your tiles is just part of what determines the final look of your tiling surface. The grout fills in the gaps between the tiles, and it can be a bold or subtle part of your design, depending on what color you want to choose. Just like there's a wide variety of tiles to choose from, there are a lot of grout colors too. We've chosen an almond-colored grout to match our tile. The grout itself is a mixture of cement-based grout powder and water. You mix it up initially and let it stand for 10 minutes. After a final stir with the margin trowel, it's ready for spreading and we can start grouting.
Okay, I'm all done with the curb here.
Oh, that's good.
I'll clean this up and I'll be right back.
Well, the tiles on the countertop and the whirlpool have had plenty of time to dry, so we're going to start grouting here. And we're using a special grout float that has a rubber bottom, and that's to protect the tiles. And you don't need to be too precise when you start this process. Just take a pile of grout, like so, and dump it out onto the surface. We wipe diagonally across the tile with the float, pushing the grout down into the joints. On this first pass, we want to make good contact with the edges of the tiles and with the surface below. And it's a good idea to work in small sections so the grout doesn't set before you can finish it. Once you've gotten good coverage with your first pass, you want to come by and do a second pass and clean off the excess grout. You want to keep the float at a 90-degree angle, like so, and work in a diagonal direction. And this is to keep the height of the grout consistent. Oh, thanks. Just in time. The grout has already begun to set up a little bit, and it's created something of a haze across the tiles. And that's to be expected. And that's where a sponge and some clean water comes in handy. We want to remove any remaining grout from the surface, but not disturb the grout that's in the joints. We pull the sponge slowly across the grout, which has now had a few minutes to set up. You don't want to press too hard since it can mess up the grout. And don't let the sponge get too wet. Moisture can draw out the pigment and leave a blotchy appearance. Sponges work well on these smaller areas, but for larger areas like floors, towels or blankets help cover a lot of space quickly. Well, that's the basic idea. Now we just keep moving across the countertop here using the same steps in grouting and sponging. Well, so much for grout on the countertop and whirlpool, eh?
Yeah, well, I got mine all done over here. After the grout's set up about an hour, you want to come back with a dry cloth and buff everything.
And since we can't do the grouting on the shower till the tile's set up, that wraps it up for today. The mortar for the shower curve has had plenty of time to dry, so we pulled off the forms and it looks pretty good. Now eventually this will be covered by the 3x3 tiles, some on the top and more on the sides. But we'll lay those in later when we're ready to tile the floor.
Now we want to set in some accessories that have been included in our shower design. We're going to start with a soap dish that we left an opening for yesterday. Now mastic doesn't work on the back of these, so what we're using is a special silicone adhesive. We press the dish in place and twist it a bit for good coverage of the glue. Then we anchor the glue with some tape to give the glue time to set up. It takes about 20 minutes for the adhesive to really take hold. We secure the corner shelf the same way, using cardboard shims to create a grout line below. And we set in 2 pieces of tile, which we cut to fill in along the sides of the shelf.
We're using the same grout mix that we used yesterday, and it's the same basic principles. You want to work the grout into the joints and then clean it off. However, since we're working on a vertical surface, our technique is a little different. We load up the trowel like so, and then work in an upwards direction. That does it for me. You about done?
Yep, I'm all set here.
Now again with the grout, we've tried to sponge off as much residue as possible. We'll let them set for about an hour and come back and buff them, and we'll let them set overnight.
If you don't get all the grout off the first day, it'll leave a little bit of a haze, which isn't a problem because there are cleaners to take that residue off. But the best thing to do is get it off the same day you put it up.
The next step here will be to get the mortar floated in the shower and across the rest of the bathroom floor.
But we'll have the subcontractor come back and pour the mortar to make sure we get a nice, firm, level surface. Say, when are they coming anyway?
Sometime after lunch?
Well, really, great, so I'll have time to get a haircut then.
Yeah, if you want.
All right. All right, things moved along pretty well here the last couple of days, and we're all set to start installing our plumbing fixtures.
We finished off the floor in the master bathroom, setting and grouting the tile that went on top of that mortar bed we hired out the other day. In fact, let's take a look at what's been happening in here. The first thing was in the shower, where the subcontractor put in the second layer of mortar right over the fabric shower pad. He created a slope from the walls down to the drain and then smoothed the surface. The edge of the mortar ended up flush with the bottom of the tile.
For the rest of the floor, he poured mortar over metal lath and a tar paper moisture barrier. He kept the mortar at a height of about 3/4 of an inch and screeded all the surfaces level. And we let that dry overnight.
The next day, we set the tile, starting at the back in the shower and the toilet cubicle. It was the same process we showed you earlier, but on the bath floor, we used sheets of 1-inch mosaic tile with a preset pattern. In the shower, we created a solid almond-colored floor by replacing the green tiles in the sheets. For the curb, we went back to our 3x3 tiles using half bullnose tiles on top with a grout line down the middle, and full tiles on the sides.
We had done our reference lines across the floor before starting, so we followed them as we continued tiling. As in any tiling job, the main thing was to keep the tiles straight and square. That was a thin set adhesive we used to secure the tiles. After laying all the tiles, we took a break to let them dry overnight.
We had one more step to take after the tile dried, and that was putting down the grout. We used the same almond-colored grout that we used on the other tile in the master bath, and we followed the same techniques in applying it. Then we let that dry overnight as well. Now that the tile's all set and grouted, we can start putting in our plumbing fixtures. We'll begin in the shower.
These are the handles, escutcheon, and shower head that we'll be installing. In fact, we'll be installing the same style here in both bathrooms on the second floor. All the pieces are chrome-plated brass, and handles will be highlighted by these ceramic caps, which will snap over the hardware.
The handles, adapters, and escutcheons go over the valve stems. The shower arm threads into the fitting behind the wall. Then the shower head screws on with Teflon tape, sealing the joint.
Right now we're installing these shut-off valves here in the toilet, the whirlpool, and the vanity supply lines. The nice thing about these is you're able to shut the water off at the fixture if you want to do any work on it without having to shut the water off in the entire house. They're secured to the pipe stubs by compression nuts. The toilet goes in next, so we set the bolts in the flange. And we tap out the flange seal to open the drain.
We've gone with the traditional style of toilet, and it comes in two pieces, the bowl and the tank. And it only takes 3.5 gallons of water per flush, so it's considered a water saver.
Now we set the toilet bowl down over the flange bolts, and we tighten those.
Next, we set the tank in place, and we secure it with bolts. Finally, we run the supply line from the shut-off valve up to the tank. There's not a whole lot of room in the master bathroom, so we're setting up the sinks and the whirlpool here in the bedroom. Besides, it's a lot easier to attach the faucet and the tailpieces before the units go in place.
These are self-rimming sinks, which mean they sit directly on top of the countertop. We connect the supply line from the shut-off valves up to each of the handle valves. Then we attach the waste arm and trap, hooking the sink drain up to the DWV pipe stub. And we seal the rim of the sink with a white caulk that actually turns clean after a week or two.
We're drilling 4 holes in the rim of our whirlpool tub here, and that's to accommodate the sprayer, the spout, and the water controls. And it's best to get these in place before you install the tub. We've also raised it up a little bit so you can get a sense of what it all looks like. This acrylic tub is designed to rest on top of the deck, and you could put the controls in the deck itself. But here on the rim, access is a little easier.
Yeah, right there, that's perfect. We're laying a mortar bed here in the bottom of the tub about 3.5 inches thick. And the 3.5 inches is the difference between the deck height and the rim of the tub. And the bottom of the tub will sit right in this, and it'll help support the weight of the tub, even when it's full of water. This is looking pretty good here.
Well, now we can lift the tub in place over the tile deck. Now, this isn't as heavy as a steel tub or a cast iron tub, but it's still pretty hefty, especially the side where the motor's on.
Yeah, look what side I've got. The bottom of the whirlpool goes right into the mortar bed.
The tub rests directly on the tile deck. And this kind of installation can be a bit difficult, so you may want to think about hiring a pro.
Okay.
The plumbing is a bit tricky too, even with the access through the paneling. We hook up the drain, and then the hot and cold water supply lines.
After connecting all the fixtures, we turn the water on and tested each one. This clears the lines of any solder or debris, but it's a good idea to take the aerators off before testing, otherwise they might get clogged.
So how's that going there?
Just about done.
All right. Well, with the plumbing done, we've turned our attention to a few other jobs, like installing the shower door.
We went with a clear glass model, and we secured the framing by drilling through the tile in the backer board into the wood framing that's behind it. And we've got a magnetic strip for the stop here, and that's what keeps the door shut.
Another thing we can do now that all the major work's done is reinstall all the doors and drawers. Right now I'm putting on the cabinet hardware. I'm drilling the holes for the screws that will support the poles. Like so.
We also have a trim piece to tie all the vanity cabinets together. This is the toe kick, and we already cut out a hole for the hot air vent that's underneath the drawers. It just goes underneath the drawers like this and covers up the individual toe kicks. And we secure it with 4-penny finish nails. Tough angle, huh?
Oh yeah.
Want to finish this up?
I got it. Go ahead.
Okay. We've been focusing on this bathroom to show you what's involved in remodeling a master bath. But we've been working on some other bathrooms too, and seeing what we've done might give you some more ideas on bathroom designs. We'll start in the guest bath that we put in next to the master bath. Around the tub, we set 4¼ inch tiles with a much thinner grout line than we've got in the master bath. We used the same style of fixture around the tub and the shower controls, and we're going to have this old cast iron tub resurfaced to look like new. And that's kind of a nice way of salvaging an old fixture that's still workable. We got a nice pattern on the floor here by using 2 different tile shapes and colors. The smaller square tiles are called dots, and by surrounding them with these pink octagonal tiles, it makes for a striking design. Over here on the vanity countertop, we use the same size and color of tiles that we did on the tub surround, but the effect here is a little different. And that's because the scored design on the tile gives it kind of a mosaic effect. And that's highlighted by the flat surfaces of the trim tiles and of the backsplash. Now the vanity is a little bit different in style than those we have in the master bath. And we also went with a darker stain for more of a contrast. The toilet cubicle allows privacy, but it prevents ventilation through the window. So we've installed a fan to keep the air moving in here.
Here on the first floor, the kitchen extends into the new addition. Down the hallway here is the 3rd new bathroom. It's small, but functional, since it is the only bath here on the first floor. And you notice that the cabinets and the tile are the same style and color as the master bath upstairs. So there's some nice design continuity there. One thing we like is the use of vertical space for this tall cabinet. It's a great way of getting a lot of storage in a pretty small area. Now all we have to do is install the hardware, and we're done.
It's been a combination of remodeling and new construction as we've worked on the bathrooms in our 2-story addition here.
Well, we've also been contracting a new home, and there we've taken a couple different directions on some of those bathrooms, and that's where we're headed now.
Sure makes a difference having all the furniture in, doesn't it?
Especially with all the fixtures in too.
Yeah. In our addition, we went with enameled cabinets and painted woodwork to match the trim in that house. In this new house, we've gone with an old hickory stain, and we've carried it through the master bedroom all the way into the master bathroom.
This bathroom is designed for use by more than one person, like the bathroom in our new addition. There's a toilet cubicle here for privacy and a double vanity, except here we have a little tabletop between the 2 vanities.
Now, when you look at the countertops, you might think, how can they afford all that marble? But looks are deceiving. This is actually ceramic tile that's designed to look like marble. In fact, let's go back a ways and show you how we worked with this.
After installing the cabinets, we covered them with 3/4 inch plywood, and we didn't put any buildup under the countertops, and we didn't hang the edges over the cabinets. That was taken care of a bit later. Let's move ahead now.
We had our subcontractors float mortar beds on the countertops as well as on the floors. They made the edges flush with the top of the cabinets, and we later screwed on strips of plywood to create the overhang. The mortar's about 3/4 of an inch deep, which raises the tops the same as a plywood buildup. The mortar gives us a flat, solid surface, which we need for this type of tiling.
This is a new style of glazed ceramic tile that's designed to give you the look of a marble surface. In fact, it's called faux marble or false marble. The tiles are 13 inches square, and because of that, you need to put them on a perfectly level surface. Otherwise, any flaws in the substrate will show up along the edges.
Marble is real popular today, but the downsides to it are it is somewhat expensive. It tends to be a little brittle for the do-it-yourselfer, and it can be slippery, so it's not real practical for most of us.
But ceramic tile with a full marble finish is affordable. It has the obvious durability of ceramic tile, and the matte finish is less slippery than marble.
Now, because of its size, it takes a little more pressure to make sure the thin set's covering the entire back of the tile. So we can take a look to see how I did.
Not too bad. Now, one thing the pros do to make sure they get solid adhesion is to beat the top of the tile with a rubber mallet. That really suits the large size tiles.
For the marble look, it's best to go with as narrow a grout joint as possible, and to also match the grout color with the background color of the tile. Now what this does is downplays the grid-like pattern that characterizes ceramic tile, and it enhances the marble appearance.
We went with a different shape with the sinks, installing these hexagonal models, and the handles and spouts are the same ones we installed in the addition, except these have a brass finish, which goes well with the dark stain and the full marble.
This tub is made out of cast iron, which was a little too heavy for us. So we had a plumbing contractor lift it into its mortar bed and hook up all the fixtures. And because it is cast iron, we had the faucet and the controls mounted right into the tub deck. And like our other Whirlpool tub, this one operates on a relay system, which means it only kicks in after the water reaches a certain height.
And we carried the full marble here on the walls of the shower. We installed a soap dish, a little shelf here, and a brass shower door.
Here's how we handled a smaller bathroom. Now this guest bath was designed with a more standard layout. We've got the vanity on one side of the room, and the toilet and the tub and shower unit on the other. On the floor, we've got 1-inch mosaic tiles, 4-inch tiles around the tub. These contrast nicely with the marble look that we have in the master bathroom. Our cabinets have a pickled stain to them, and on the countertop, we went with laminate, which is an entirely different treatment altogether. And to show you what we mean, let's go back and show you how we worked with this. Let's take you back to when we put the countertop together and pick it up after we cut the particle board to size and secured the buildup for the front edge of the countertop. We worked in the master bedroom where there was a little bit more room.
All right, now we're all set to install the laminate. The first thing we'll do is cover up this build-up area here. So we have to measure and cut this first piece.
Got it.
94 5/8. All right, 1.5 inches. Laminate comes in many colors and patterns. It's actually several layers of paper impregnated by resin and covered with a thin layer of clear plastic. After marking the dimensions on the laminate, we score the surface with a special laminate cutting tool. It helps to figure in extra materials since it will be trimmed later. And once we score the surface, we snap the pieces apart to make the cut.
We're using contact cement to secure it, and we'll put it over the laminate strip and the buildup. And you want to let it set up for a while before you actually join the two pieces. Once the cement is dry to the touch, we lay the strip of laminate down over the buildup, overlapping each edge with the material. We then press down with a laminate roller for a strong bond. We use a router and a flush trim bit to cut off the excess on all the sides. A belt sander gets it smooth. Yeah, I think it's ready, Dean.
Okay,
Okay, we're all ready to finish off the top here. We've applied glue to the laminate and the countertop. It's had time to set up. So we're using these scraps to help position the laminate on the counter. With the trim pieces, we can line things up without having to fight the glue. We start on one side, removing one trim piece, and pressing the laminate down into the cement.
There we go. And once the laminate is glued, it has to be rolled to get it flat. We use a router to trim the edges, and we put a slight bevel along the front edge. And we smooth that with a special file called a Magic Cut. It has wider teeth so it doesn't bind on the laminate. We've moved ahead in time a little bit, and we've constructed a backsplash and a couple of side splashes to go around the other edges of our countertop. And we use the same basic procedures, cutting pieces of particle board to size and then gluing the laminate on top of it. On the top of the backsplash, we've secured a 3/8" piece of particle board which will later be scribed against the back of the wall. We'll secure the backsplash first, and then 3 drilling holes down through the laminate to keep from cracking it. We've got a guideline to help center the holes.
Now we glue the bottom of the backsplash, laying down 2 beads of silicone caulk.
We set the piece on the back edge of the countertop, making sure that it's flush to the back, and then clamping it in place. Then we screw up from below to secure it.
The side splashes follow next, and they go in on the side of the countertop with the bottoms flush with a buildup under the front edge.
Again, we need to scribe the top of this backsplash to the bathroom wall. So we're ready to move this countertop into the bathroom. Yeah. Everything fine.
All right. Okay, now we've nailed in some 3/4" plywood on the counter here for a buildup. So we're all set to lay the countertop right in place. Now we cut it a little bit short so we can angle it down. And once it's in place, we want the back edge of the laminate perfectly flush with the wall. So we can use a compass to describe any surface variations. A belt sander is good for taking off the excess laminate. All we do is remove just enough to get even with the pencil line.
Now that the countertop is scribed, we can put it in for good. And I put down some beads of silicone caulk to help secure it. We're using 2" bugle head screws, and we're going up through the corner braces into the particle board.
Now we can attach the laminate to the tops and front of our side splashes. We left it off till now so we could get as tight a fit as possible. So the first thing I want to do here is set the scribe to the extra width of laminate and then scribe that to the wall. Again, we use a sander to trim the edge. We glue on the finishing strips and then roll them flat. These cover the small gaps we left to make the installation easier. And we file the edges smooth to finish them.
Turned out pretty well. Laminate is one of the least expensive ways to finish a countertop, and it's durable. Now once this was in, we just cut the holes out for the sinks and finished off the plumbing.
Well, that should give you some more design ideas for bathrooms. We still have some more work to do on our addition, though. We have all of our painting supplies, so that's taken care of.
Oh, we still need to make a decision on our lighting fixtures, too.
Oh, that's right. We can check out that on the way home.
Okay.
All right, now we're really finished in here. With all the paint done, we hooked up the light fixtures and outlets and switches. Now, an electrician ran all the wiring for us, and all the outlets are hooked up to a GFI circuit that begins with this outlet over here. There's a circuit breaker inside that kills the power when any part of the circuit gets wet. You just press this button to turn the power back on.
We hope that our work here and at our new home site has given you a lot of ideas on any bathroom projects you might have in mind. And for more information on the steps involved in this project, Check out our tapes on framing, plumbing, and ceramic tile. For Home Time, I'm Joanne Liebler.
And I'm Dean Johnson. Thanks for watching.
Home Time is made possible by Chevy Truck, who brings you Chevy full-size pickups. Today's big pickups for professionals and do-it-yourselfers. Chevy S10 pickups. Today's compact pickups that play as hard as they work. Chevy S10 Blazer. Today's sport utility vehicle in 2- or 4-wheel drive. Chevy Astro. Today's compact van with 2-wheel drive and new all-wheel drive models. Nobody's winning like the heartbeat of America. Today's truck is Chevrolet.
The National Home Time PBS series is brought to you weekly by Chevy Truck in conjunction with the Stanley Works.